Hello, good afternoon from Brooklyn SolarWorks here in Gowanus, Brooklyn. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to do a presentation on solar incentives and savings in 2026. Just to give you a little background on who we are, we have been in business now for a little over 11 years. We operate in New York City only, so just the 5 boroughs. We'll do flat roof solar, pitched roof. We've installed a little over 3,000 systems, and we are motivated by our mission to help create a more sustainable New York City, state, quite frankly, the world. So let's get into it. The 3 things that we want you to take away from this webinar, is to understand what the current solar incentives are in New York City, to understand sort of the average solar savings potential for a typical building in New York City, and also what the timeline is to go solar. So the 3 big takeaways are going to be, and we're going to dive into these individually, but you can get up to 60% of the cost of your solar system incentivized by various tax incentives available in New York State and New York City. On average, and this is definitely going to vary depending on so many different variables, which we'll cover, monthly savings is around $150 with solar. So in other words, the amount of solar energy that the system will produce equates to roughly about $150 of what you would normally buy from Con Ed if you didn't have solar. Another key piece of information is how long does it actually take to do this? Well, the installation itself is about usually 1, maybe 2 days, but the timeline to get there, to take care of all the things that we have to do behind the scenes, is about 2 months. If it's a landmark building, it might be a little longer, closer to 3 months. At the end, we're going to have, sorry, I should have mentioned this, we're going to have a question and answer period. So feel free to send any questions you have through the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. Okay, so right off the bat, solar incentives. New York City, we have the best incentives of anywhere in the entire country. Like I said, about 60% of the cost of the solar for some folks can come from these various incentives. So on a $40,000 system, that can cover up to $25,000. Here are the incentives as they exist today. New York City, through the Department of Finance, will issue a 30%, up to 30% property tax abatement. So it's not 30% of your property taxes, it's whatever the cost of the system is, 30%, whatever that dollar amount is, gets spread out over a 4-year period. So it reduces your property taxes for 4 years. So if you pay a mortgage and your property taxes are paid through your mortgage bank, your mortgage payment will go down for 4 years because they'll have to escrow a smaller amount of money to satisfy the property tax bill. New York State has a 25% tax credit. It's the max that they'll give is $5,000. So for all intents and purposes, it's a $5,000 tax credit from New York State. And the way you claim that is when you file your state income tax the year after going solar, that gets claimed against your state tax liability. Now, if for some reason you don't have adequate tax liability to collect that full $5,000 in year 1, it will carry over for 5 years and allow you to take a full 5 years to receive that $5,000 back. Now, this next one, which is called the historic tax credit, it doesn't apply to all homes in New York City. It's qualifying homes. There's 2 criteria that need to be met in order to receive this additional tax credit from the state. You have to live in a qualifying historic district, and you have to meet this other qualifying census tract that has to do with like income and a bunch of different financial data. So when those two things overlap, those folks get to claim an additional 20% from the state. And it works very much like the $5,000 state tax credit. You claim it when you file your state income tax the following year. And that can be carried over indefinitely until the full credit is distributed. That's a really, really great tax credit. And there's not a whole bunch of areas in the city that qualify for it, but those that do, it just makes solar, absolutely a no-brainer. And by the way, if you're doing any other kind of work on the front of your home in one of these districts, whether it's like facade work or a whole bunch of different home renovation projects, can be included into that credit. So that's just good information to have. The next incentive is called net metering, one-to-one net metering. So what this means is when you go solar, there are going to be times throughout the day, throughout the year, when your solar produces more energy than you are consuming at that moment. So when that happens, those excess kilowatt hours, they have to keep moving. They have to go somewhere. So they flow backwards into the grid through your meter, because Con Ed makes the modification to your meter, turning it into a two-way net meter. So it measures power in and power out. Anytime your system produces more than you're using, more than you're consuming, you get credit for each and every kilowatt hour that you send to Con Ed. Those credits bank up in your Con Ed account. They roll over month to month, year to year for 20 years. And then they're used to reduce your Con Ed bill for times when solar does not provide you with enough energy to run your home. So we're very lucky here. I mean, we pay the highest rates, of anywhere in the country for electricity, but we're very fortunate that we have this one-to-one net metering. And it actually, it's almost akin to a virtual battery. So something to keep in mind, because again, not all states have this. Here is a visual of net metering. So you can see the jagged red line that goes up above the beige section. That is the excess solar energy that was produced during the middle of the day when the sun probably, this is like a typical summertime situation. You're producing a lot more than you're using. So those kilowatt hours are going to bank up into your account. And then as nighttime comes, or think of it as summer and winter, as the darker time comes, you're going to pull more from Con Ed. But instead of paying them dollars for that energy you're using, they're just going to pay themselves by grabbing kilowatt hour credits from your energy credit bank from when you overproduced previously. It's kind of a strange concept because we don't think of electricity like that, but that is like the true gold of going solar. Here is a typical cost breakdown for a non-historic district home going solar. This is actually a recent proposal that we presented to a customer. So they were a referred customer, which is great. So when we get a referral, the person, whether they're a customer or a non-customer, referred someone to us. If that person goes solar, the referrer who sent us the customer will get $1,000 bonus from us, and the new customer will get a discount off their system. So that's what you see here. So the original cost, $43,612. We take $1,000 off that. So the out-of-pocket cost, $42,612. The state tax credit equals $5,000. The New York property tax abatement is 30%, so that's the $12,784. So those all come off the top. So the ultimate net cost of ownership comes down to $24,829. For this customer, that represents about a 9-year payback period. So, what else can you add to your home that actually pays itself off in that short amount of time? Your monthly utility savings in this case is just under $200 a month, because the amount of solar that the system's going to produce over a year's time divided by 12 equals about $198 worth of Con Ed payment. The effective 30-year kilowatt hour rate. So basically right now in New York City, folks are paying about 35 or 36 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look on your bill and you do the math, you'll see that. So by going solar, if we look over a 30-year period, what we've essentially done is we've brought down the cost of power to 13 cents a kilowatt hour. So this is going to look different for each person for whom we do a proposal, because there's a lot of variables here. The size of your roof, how much electricity you currently use. Are you going to be adding more electrical devices or an electric car in the future? All of these things are going to play into what your specific, cost package looks like. What's included? Obviously, panels, inverters, monitoring system. You are going to be able to see what your system is producing. We do all the design, permitting, installation. You get a project manager. I'm going to go to the historic tax credit example and then talk more about what everything is included here. For a similar system size, but in a historic restoration zone, you can just see the nice difference here. Not only do they get the state tax credit for $5,000, they still have the property tax abatement at $12,784, but now they have an additional 20% tax credit from the state, totaling $8,522. So it brings their net cost to $16,306, and their payoff window, the length that it takes to pay off the system, comes down to just under 6 years. The monthly savings is still around the same, because the amount of solar we're producing is valued, is the same amount and valued the same way. So that's just under $200 a month. And your effective kilowatt hour rate is 13 cents per kilowatt hour. Back to what's included in our packages. So we cover our systems with a 30-year system warranty, which covers workmanship, parts, and labor. So we have a partnership with a third-party company called Solar Insure that steps in if any of the players are no longer operating, whether it's Brooklyn SolarWorks or the panel manufacturer or the inverter manufacturer, your system is still going to be covered. We provide system monitoring. Actually, that comes from the inverter manufacturer, but you'll always be able to have an app or go onto a website to see what your panels are producing. And we encourage, although we are looking into that ourselves, we do encourage customers to keep an eye on their system. Also, super important, and we are the only solar company that does this, is we have a 10-year energy production guarantee. So when we do a final analysis of your home, and we tell you your system is going to produce, X number of kilowatt hours for the year, if the system underproduces, we're going to check it every year. If it underproduces, which means you had to buy more power from Con Ed than you anticipated, we pay you back for the shortfall. So what that means is twofold. We're actually quite conservative in our production estimates, number one. Number two, if there is some issue with your system, it behooves us to get out and remedy it as quickly as possible, because we don't want you to have lost production, because that's just going to make us have to, come up with the difference. The average, again, average is hard to say because there's so many variables here, but over like a 30-year period, we're seeing a lot of homes. I just did a proposal yesterday, we're saying 80,000 here over a 30-year period, savings on energy bills. We saw one yesterday that was like 120,000. So again, how much sun does your roof get? How big is your roof? Are you going to get the tax, the HTC tax credit? A lot of variables here, but the savings is significant. That's the point. So to calculate energy savings, what we do is we look at the average monthly usage in kilowatt hours. So in this example, 670 kilowatt hours is the customer's average monthly usage. The monthly solar production is estimated to be, now of course this is going to vary because of the way sun behaves in the calendar year. But if we're going to do it over a 12-month average, this system should produce about 550 kilowatt hours of electricity each month. If the Con Ed cost is 36 cents, which we're seeing, on people when they send us their bills, that seems to be the going rate. That math equals $198 of energy savings. And so a 30-year energy savings could be just under $100,000. This Con Ed rate that we're quoting here, 36 cents, this has increased 26% since the year 2020. And it's expected to rise an average of about 4% each year. So by 2056, it's projected to be, over $1.12. So that means each year your savings amount grows. One note here is that when someone goes solar, even if we're able to give them 100% of their annual electricity from solar, you never have a totally zero Con Ed bill. You're still connected to the grid because this is a grid-tied system. So you will always have that basic connection fee, which is usually around $20 a month if it's a regular residential meter. If it's one of those small commercial meters, it's about $30 a month. But so there's going to always be that. And then Con Ed, we call it the solar tax. They call it the customer benefit charge. But they do charge solar customers an extra little small charge on their bill, which is calculated based on the size of the system. Together, they're going to be $30, $35, those charges. Here is a nice visual example of solar savings over time. So the blue line on the bottom is solar, the cost of solar, right, for a 30-year period. Like, it's not going to go up, whether you pay cash for your system or you finance it. You no longer have an escalating rate on that portion of your electricity usage, right? It's going to be constant. So the red line shows the projection of Con Ed prices going up each year. So the area in between is your savings. So sort of big picture, solar is you have to use electricity, right? We haven't figured out how to get away from that. Con Ed right now is your only choice unless you go solar. Con Ed's rates go up every year, sometimes multiple times a year. By going solar, you're taking a big nut of what you use for electricity and you're turning it into a fixed lower cost that will not increase. The bottom line is it's always going to pay itself. It's always going to be financially smart to go solar because you will save money. Here's a case study. You can see a Con Ed bill, the top portion of the backside of a Con Ed bill for a customer who gave us a bill for their winter usage. And you can see at the top that it's a very high bill, just practically $623. This obviously, I believe, is a home that was heating with heat pumps. So they're using electricity to heat their home. So their winter bills are high. They went solar, and you can see now, of course, this is a summer bill, but same house, same usage patterns. And you can see how greatly reduced their summer bill is. Now, their summer bills before solar were also high. But you can see that if you look carefully all the way over to the right, there's a negative number, minus 253. So that means they actually produced 253 kilowatt hours more than they consumed. So at the end of the month, it turns out they gave Con Ed more power than Con Ed gave them. But they're still going to have basic service charge, customer benefit charge, and all the little taxes that apply to those numbers. So that's a pretty dramatic example, but this is usual. This is common. We see this often. So the process for getting solar, like I said, takes about 2 to 3 months. The key is people right now, this time of year, there's not a lot of sunny days. So people aren't thinking about solar. But if you think about solar now, it means you're installed and up and running and producing when the sun is higher in the sky and when you're cranking your AC. And it's really the smartest time to think about solar is the winter so that you're up and ready to go for the spring and summer. Here's our basic process. We start with a discovery call. Depending on how many questions you may have, it's probably about maybe a half an hour. We're going to learn about your home, answer your questions, address your concerns. We're going to ask you for a recent Con Ed bill. There's a chart on your bill that shows me 12 months of kilowatt hour usage. We'll figure out what your annual usage is. Next is our design team will create a proposal, a design, or a system design based on satellite imagery. Your salesperson will turn that into a proposal. We'll review that with you. If it looks good to you and you would like us to get more granular, what we will do is we will come over and we will do a site visit on your roof. We ask for $1,000 refundable deposit to proceed with that step. It is truly refundable. If we come back to you with final project details that have changed, or for whatever reason you decide it's not right for you, no questions asked, we absolutely refund that deposit. But assuming, the data we collect when we get on your roof, we're taking physical measurements, we're taking sun and shade measurements, we're totally checking out your electrical equipment. We want to make sure that it is, solar ready, that we can tie in with no problems and that everything's going to pass inspection. So we come back to you with final project details. Hopefully everything looks really great. You want to move forward. That's when we have you sign our agreement. If you're going to be utilizing any financing, any loans to pay for the project, then we get you set up with that and get approvals there. Once that's all good, we book your project and we turn it over to our project management team. They are going to do all of the behind the scenes work, get structural drawings done and stamped, get an electrical permit, get a building permit. Once we've got all that, and also, by the way, we're also coordinating with Con Ed behind the scenes, and if necessary, FDNY is part of the whole process. You guys don't have to interface with any of those entities. We will handle all of that. Once all of that is ready, we are calling you up and we are getting you on our installation calendar. Installation, typically one day. If we have to do some electrical work, we're probably returning in the next couple of days to finish that up. But once you're installed, we schedule the inspection with DOB. It's usually within the next 2 weeks. Once that's all wrapped up, everything goes over to Con Ed and they issue PTO, permission to operate, and that's when they start recognizing your kilowatt hour credits and crediting them on your bill. But when we're done installing on installation day, your system is actually turned on and you're producing electricity. It's just the net metering doesn't kick in until Con Ed has their final approval. So how do we design your system? As I mentioned before, super important that we see a Con Ed bill so that we can quantify your electricity usage. Now, if you've just moved into a house or you're building the house and you don't have that information, then we're just going to make some assumptions, and we're going to ask you about the appliances in your home and how many folks live there, and try to do the best we can. Then we look at available roof space. You may have a large roof. There might be a couple of skylights, there might be a hatch, some HVAC equipment, right? All that plays into the size of the system. We have to follow a lot of rules. FDNY has a big say in what we can and can't do on your roof. So our design team knows all of the little rules. So they will give the salesperson a maxed out system design to talk to you about. And we'll see what the production, how that matches, or where that fits with what your home's annual usage is. Another key element in designing your system is sun exposure. When we come to your home and we get on the roof, not only are we measuring the dimensions of your roof, we're also taking using a device called a solometric sun eye. We're getting a very good read on where the shade factors are and when they are going to impact your roof during the year and the time of day. We also take into account what do you use your roof for? Some people never go on their roof, right? They don't really care what's going to be up there. Other folks actually hang out on their roof, right? So they use it for recreation. You may have seen, if you've ever looked up while you're walking around Brooklyn or been to our website, that we have something called the solar canopy. That's a system that goes 9 feet up above your roof. It allows you to fully use your roof surface. You don't have to choose a canopy. Some people love them. Some people don't care for them. Future electric needs. Are you adding HVAC, electric heating, EV charging? All of those are going to play into, how big we want to make the system. Of course, the biggest criteria is the size of your roof, because, I was talking to a guy the other day. He goes, well, I really want more power. I'm like, well, you don't have the roof space for it. So he's like, we're very confined by the size of the roof. Landmarks. Some of you might be in landmark homes. We have been working with landmarks since the beginning, since we started, and we understand exactly what their rules are. We adhere to their rules. They trust us. They know that we are not going to try to install something that's going to be visible from the street. That's a no-no. We have a very good relationship with them. So if you aren't a landmark home, be assured that if you go solar, your system will not be visible from the street. As I mentioned before, solar canopy, that picture on the left, that is a typical solar canopy. 2 trusses that span the width of your roof, and A-frame legs come down. They are attached at the strongest point on the roof, which is within 18 inches of the parapet wall. You have full roof access with a canopy. It's about 9 feet up above your roof surface. Sort of the more traditional, more common system is called a tilt rack. And you can see these panels are tilted. We will tilt them in the most southerly direction possible for optimal, sun exposure. And they're on racking, but they're not, the front or the back is going to be lower. And so we can tilt them at a nice optimal angle. We also work on pitch roofs. And, the pitch of the roof itself typically offers, a beneficial angle to the sun. So really, any kind of rooftop in New York City, we can usually accommodate. A lot of folks ask if re-roofing is necessary before going solar. Not usually. If you're experiencing leaks in your house from your roof, or it's spongy or bouncy or bubbly, we're going to be hesitant about installing solar on a roof like that. We're going to want those issues taken care of, because obviously nobody wants a leak, right? Thankfully, leaks are super, super rare. But that's because we're not going to put attachments in a place where we see that there's always ponding of water after it rains, right? We're going to want that all taken care of. But for the most part, it's not necessary to re-roof before solar. After installations, roofs can be repaired. If you have a tilt rack system where there's more attachments, compared to a canopy, more attachments across the roof, because the panels are, not flat to the roof, a roofer or somebody, working on the roof can still get to those areas. And then, of course, with the canopy, the entire roof surface is open and available. System removal for roof repairs is possible if requested after installation. If you think you're going to need to redo your roof like in 3 or 4 years, it's advisable to do that before solar, for obvious reasons. Touched on this a little bit before. We do coordinate directly with Landmarks Preservation Committee. It's definitely possible. These are 2 good examples. These are landmarked homes. You'll notice that the front of the home is probably facing south. So that works, for these folks, because we're going to put it lower in the front, which is where it would be visible from the street. And we're going to be able to tilt it up as we go back, and the higher part is in the back of the house, so it's not going to be visible, but you're still going to get good sun exposure. Not all landmark homes are eligible for the historic tax credit, but many homes that are available for the historic tax credit are not landmarked. So we really just have to scrutinize your address and see, what rules and what benefits can apply to you. So, if you're curious, the best thing is to just reach out to us and schedule a discovery call. We can really dive in and give you all the information you need to see if you think it makes sense. Co-ops. We get some inquiries from co-op members and co-op boards. Is it possible to do solar on a co-op? Absolutely, yes, it is. Typically, what we do is either cover common charges. By the solar on this roof, I believe, is connected to the common charges account. So, probably the laundry room, all the hall lighting, whatever might be on that account, solar is going to offset that usage. There are ways that we can split the savings among residents. It's too sort of complicated to go into right here. But we can make that very digestible for someone on the board to be able to present to the owners. And then the great thing about co-ops is, if you have 10 co-op owners, that New York State tax credit gets each individual can apply for that tax credit. So it wouldn't necessarily be $5,000, but they each get 25%. So when you put it all together, it often equals way more than $5,000. Another inquiry we get frequently is buildings that have to, follow local law 97. So we can work with folks that are dealing with that as well. So recap, three takeaways from this. 60% of your cost of solar can be covered by incentives. Caveat there is obviously the historic tax credit isn't across the board, but it's going to be 40 to 60%. Average monthly savings that we see sort of across the board is about $150 a month. And the timeline to go solar is 3 months. I'm going to take questions now, but I just also want to ask everyone, if you're talking to your friends, neighbors, colleagues, and people are like, oh, it doesn't make sense to go solar anymore because there's no more federal tax credit. The bigger takeaway here is, yes, it does, especially in New York City. So if nothing else, help us spread that word, please. Also, for anyone who has attended this webinar, when you reach out to us for a discovery call, please mention that this is where you heard about us from, and we will put a $1,000 discount on your system. So let's see, we've got some questions here that have populated. Okay. My co-op is considering installing heat pumps to work with our gas boiler. Let's see, Con Ed's hybridization. How can we calculate the number of solar panels needed to balance the increase? Okay, so it's going to be a little difficult to really nail that down. Probably what would be important to know is get all the data from the data sheet of the actual heat pump that you're considering using. How many are you going to use? How many will there be? And then you have to kind of do some calculations, and they're going to be guesstimates, because the heat pumps you're going to use so is it going to be just for heating air, or will it also maybe be doing water? I don't know, but it's going to be hard to nail that down specifically, because obviously, like, your habits, your living habits will impact this, right? Do you like it really warm? Do you take long showers if it's going to also be for water heating? So the best thing to do is to check the data sheet of the product that you're considering, and you often have calculators in there too. So that would be my advice. Or just max out the roof with solar, get a proposal for that, and see, does it seem to make sense, right? Oftentimes, if you're going to be using electric heat, maxing out your roofs with solar is still going to be under 100%. So it's not really a question. It's just make it the biggest impact you can and know that you've done so. And, the rest will have to come from Con Ed. Okay. Do you offer pre-PPA as an option? I'm not sure maybe you're referring, a PPA is a power purchase agreement. But you might be referring to a prepaid lease. And actually, yes, we did just, at the beginning of the year actually at the end of last year, we did start offering a prepaid lease. It's not a power purchase agreement. It's similar. It's a lease. It's a 10-year term. Would love to talk to you about it, because it really makes a lot of sense. And it's a way for solar companies, for us to, since we technically own the system in that scenario, it allows us to take the commercial federal tax credit that's still available and pass that savings on to the customer. So hopefully I've answered that for you, but we should definitely talk about it. How does winter weather, dark day, affect solar production? Yes. So we know that we live here in the Northeast. We understand our weather patterns here. When we tell you what the system's going to produce, we've already calculated in the fact that November, December, January, February are not going to be high producing months. It's just not. That's just the fact. The sun is lower in the sky. If we've got snow on the panels and it's thick, solar panels will not produce. We know that. We've already taken that into consideration when we've given you the kilowatt hour production annually. Okay. What banks would you suggest for financing? Okay, so we partner with, there are two banks that we use for solar. One is through NYSERDA, which is New York State Energy Research Development Authority. It's called the Smart Energy Loan. It has two flavors for APR, 4% and 7.5%. And the way you qualify for one or the other is by virtue of your address. So for folks that don't qualify for the 4%, we have another loan through a credit union called Credit Human. Their interest rate, I think now, is like 8.49%. Interest rates aren't great right now. So if you have a way to borrow money that's more beneficial, totally go for it. And then to us, we would consider that a cash purchase. And of course, that's the best pricing we have. A home equity line of credit is a great way to look into it, see what kind of rate you can get there. But you can also see what our two options, how they look for you. Okay, so how vulnerable are the canopy panels to wind and storms? Okay, so that's a good question. That's been on some people's minds. So we take safety obviously very seriously here. Canopies are super structurally connected to the roof. We connect at the most secure point, which is within 18 inches of the parapet wall. So there's that. But then also, all of our systems are stamped, and they have to be approved and stamped by an outside structural engineer. At the conclusion of each installation, whether it's a canopy or a regular tilt rack, we do a torque check. So we are making sure that all the attachment points are secure and not susceptible to any sort of movement. Everything's inspected by DOB. And our wind resistance is, I don't have that number right in front of me. I believe I don't know what the number is, but they are rated to withstand winds up to, it's over 100 miles an hour, but I don't have that in front of me at the moment. You can certainly look into that. Okay, is the state tax credit refundable? So no, it's not. It's not a refundable tax credit. And trust me, we have been trying to get that changed for many years on the policy end of things. No state tax. If you have zero state tax, that's going to be difficult. The historic, you're right, it is refundable. Yes, that is very true. So you've done your homework. I wish I had a better answer for you on that. The $5,000 from New York State is not a refundable tax credit, unfortunately. Okay, here's another question. We are building a new home in the Rockaways and are forced to do all electric. Okay. Oh, and required, right, because you're building a new home. That's local law 97, right? And that 94, right. We have no usage to calculate. Is there a minimum we can install? Actually, if you're doing a private home and it's not a big building, I believe you're going to have to max out your roof for solar. Oh, but wait. Also, wait, hold on. We have no usage to calculate. Is there a minimum we can install? There used to be some not gray area, but so interpretation that you only had to do a 4 kilowatt size system. But the real rule is, if you have the space, you have to use all of it, all usable space for solar. So that might be greater than 4 kilowatts system size. Is there also, we are in a co-op with individual houses and our real estate is paid via co-op. Oh, okay. So yeah, the property tax abatement, it will still apply. So your co-op would pay it, but they're going to have to collect less from you in order to pay it because the bill will be lower. I hope that answers that question. Anything else? Oh, how do I maintain my system? Who does this? Well, one of the other great things about solar is there are no moving pieces. So there's no like tune-ups that are required. There's no like annual maintenance that needs to happen. We don't want you to clean the panels. Please don't get out there with, Windex. Nature takes care of cleaning the panels. Rain, snow, any sort of sediments or dust that is collected will come off. But if there was an issue with your system, you would be reaching out to Brooklyn SolarWorks, and we're going to take care of it for you. It's in our interest to make sure your system is producing so that we don't have to pay you for any missed production. Okay. So we're slowing down on questions. So send them in now if you'd like me to answer any of them. Otherwise, you've got my direct email here. You've got our website here. Feel free to email me directly. You can go onto our website and schedule an appointment. You can call into our office if you like. And don't forget, anyone who mentions that they attended this webinar, we will apply a $1,000 discount to your system. Oh, I see we have one more question here. How do I calculate what my electricity bill will look like after installation? It's going to vary across the year, but we'll be able to calculate that for you, because we're going to know what the anticipated solar production is and how that is going to vary throughout the year. So we'll be able to. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? What are the downs? Let's see. What are some downsides to be aware of and potential solutions to offset these concerns? Oh, downside. It's hard. I'm very biased, by the way. I have 2 systems on my house, and I've been doing this for 11 years. I don't really see a downside, to be perfectly honest with you. If you want to pay cash for this system, obviously you're going to outlay some cash. I guess that could be seen as a downside, but the system's going to pay itself off in a number of years. If you have terrible credit and you can't pay cash, that might be difficult to get funding. But typically, we're able to find solutions for most of our customers. Any other questions popping in? Can you do solar on things besides roofs, like a yard or carport? Yes, we can. Now, zoning becomes a consideration. We can't, also, once you're not putting solar on the roof and you're putting it on the ground, you're now a lot lower, and any larger buildings or trees around you are going to have a bigger impact shade-wise. But like in Queens and stuff, we have built some carports. Or we call them ground mounts or carports, whether you park your car under it or not. Yes. There's other considerations there. We have to dig to do footings, to put cement footings in for the structure. And we have to, figure out how to connect the solar that's going to be produced by that structure to the service panel in your house. So that might involve some trenching. There's more things to consider, but yes, totally possible. Another question that comes up a lot: can I get a battery with my solar panels? No, the answer is no, unfortunately. New York City right now does not allow backup panels for solar. It's unfortunate, but it's going to change. We just don't know when. We have been working very closely with FDNY and DOB on figuring this all out, and we were successful in installing a residential battery at the end of last year. It only took 7 years to get that permit. So you can see we've got a lot of red tape to get through. FDNY is obviously very concerned about fires. We've got attached homes here. So a lot of folks are familiar with the Tesla Powerwall. It's a backup battery that's like popular in other states, even in Long Island. FDNY they're not happy with that battery because of the technology. So we have a battery that we are going to use as soon as we're allowed to, that they like, that's safer. So stay tuned, because yes, batteries will become a thing. We're just not quite there yet. Okay, so I think that wraps it up. I don't think we have any other questions. Okay, so hopefully we'll hear from you all soon. If nothing else, please just spread the word for us that solar still makes sense, and it's alive and well in New York City. We really need folks to spread the word, because, as you know, we don't have a government right now that's really enthused about renewable energy. And so we're doing everything we can to keep it moving here in New York City. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope to hear from you soon.